So, what's it like to watch a video from this channel?
Oh, goody, goody, here it comes. Oh my God, don't stop now!
You want me to fly in the back of a little tiny fighter aircraft with a crazy fighter pilot who thinks he's invincible, home in on a SAM site in North Vietnam, and shoot it before it shoots me? You gotta be f***ing me.
Hello and welcome to my Model Corner Project 34. In this second dedication video, we'll be building the F-105 Thunderchief picked out by Phil, who designed the superb Max Afterburner emblems seen in our video intros and on this channel's merchandise. This jet is a favorite of Phil's and I'm thrilled to be able to build this in his honor. Drop him a line if you're looking for custom graphics work. A link to his email is provided in the description below. The F-105 played a large role during combat in Vietnam, and we'll be concentrating on the G Golf Wild Weasel version of the Thunderchief for this episode. Let's get to it, shall we?
In the name of the government of France, I order you to open this.
You seem to have things strangely confused in your mind.
We have a few sub-assemblies that need to be completed before we close up the fuselage, starting with the cockpit and ejection seats. The crew seats are small, but they fit pretty well together. By placing our freed up parts on these cardboard pellets, we can organize them, paint multiple pieces at once, and at different angles. We can avoid hand brushing in lots of little elements of the panels and just scrape away the paint to bring out all the control pieces. We get our fuselage halves ready in preparation to add the sub-assemblies, with the dual cockpit being first. We have a pretty detailed engine to install, and as usual, we'll go through all the construction, painting, and some detailing, even though it will be all hidden.
But why?
It's a bit of fun, and we can practice and may even come out with something useful for a future build. In this case, I tried something, and it worked out. We can use this image as a basis for the different paints we'll use on the core of our Pratt & Whitney J75. There are a few detail pieces to add to the engine core before we continue. Here's where trying something out succeeds. A rust color weathering powder on this black background matches nicely with images we've seen on different aircraft engine surfaces. It will be a nice addition for our toolbox of ready-to-use techniques. Unfortunately, this is one of those kits that instruct you to install the nose gear early, subsequently risking its damage throughout the build. We could avoid this by cutting the mounting pins now and attempt to position it perfectly later somehow. However, this nose gear comes with an upper and lower section. Thus, we can set the upper portion in place and retract the gear for now, and then finish it all up later during final assembly. Like we did for our Helldiver project long ago now, we can apply an enamel metallic silver base and paint over it and later create the look of wear with scratches and also expose the original silver underlying hydraulic lines and other equipment without having to do fine hand brushing and hazard the chance of multiple touch-ups being necessary. We have positive rate, gear up. While we're at it, and to maintain a structure to our video, we'll accomplish much of the landing gear and bay work together now. Our primer and black shading process pay off particularly well this time as the rivets and panel lines maintain their darkness, minimizing the need for too much wash other than to slightly enhance detail and create dirt and contaminated fluid leaks. For a bit of a head start, the main gear construction is started so that they'll be at the ready when needed. At this point, we can attach our engine. Our next addition will be the nose gear bay. Let's hit the cannon bay with some paint and also the air refuel probe bay before attachment. We can then affix it to the other side of the fuselage and finally close the whole of it up. Three, two, one, fire. We'll build our cannon, but we'll cover it later within its fuselage compartment. To conclude the central portion of the fuselage, we concentrate on the aft end with the engine cowling. If you wish to have your resting gear movable, you'll have to attach that now, which will create a little difficulty in painting and detailing that area. For this undertaking, we will cut the pins and pose a hook in its stowed position later on. This Hobby Boss model contains engine bulkheads which could come in handy if you're creating a Thunderchief maintenance diorama. However, we'll build, detail, and then hide away our work for the pleasure of it. There's a little too much gap around this panel, so a little putty is added. And we'll also attend to that gap at the hump between the two cockpits. Let's move on to our large flight control surfaces. The silver and green cover-up technique we accomplished with the nose gear bay and gear doors are repeated here for the main gear compartments. It was later discovered that a portion of the main landing gear bay wall is molded on the fuselage halves. Rather than break out the spray can again, I applied the green and then gingerly hand painted in the metallic components. To add a tiny bit of dynamic flair, the trailing edge flaps are positioned slightly downward. It's starting to look like an aircraft, a Thunderchief in fact. Let's button it up and provide masking for overspray protection. Hey, it looks like rain again. Adding these randomly placed white streaks and wild patterns will affect the future color layers when they're laid down, creating the appearance of wear and uneven lighting. For those playing at home and are familiar with our camouflage stencil technique and calculations, here are my results, and a quick look at some of the template sheets printed out at the model's actual physical size. As always, we test out our chosen colors on smaller pieces before committing to the larger areas of the model. In addition to the usual paper cutouts, I'll be trying out Andy's camouflage putty to augment our airbrushing painting guardrails. His product is somewhat a solid that we can shape, but it also flows over time and is considered a viscoelastic liquid. I didn't quite have the colors I needed on hand, and I didn't prefer to spend time coming up with custom mixtures this time around. Relying on the suggested products on the Hobby Boss paint and decal guide, the 3 colors in particular that were chosen for this F-105 worked out rather nicely. For the underside, we'll add some wash to create a little used and grimy look. It's coming along.
You're the only pleasant sight that I've seen in 7 months.
Trying to be clever, I painted the canopy latches, but later finding out that the molded lines were too short. We'll fall back on the decal sheet to remedy this during that phase, but I'll show you the work that was done on one side to prevent puzzling the viewer later. On the kid's color guide, we have these extra large wingtip lights, which I couldn't find any photographic evidence of. Only examples of the standard oval light with some other Thuds modified with a wingtip tube and the light attached to that.
You should never believe everything your eyes tell you, young man.
So, we'll create our own lights. After the chrome dries, we'll add all the appropriate clear colors. Concurrently, we'll paint all the other tinted lighting glass. It's easier to do this while they're still in the sprue tree and we can still have an accounting of them. After these dry, we affix them using some tacky putty on the end of a cocktail stick. I still need to invest in the wooden sticks with wax tips out there, which probably perform better that the arts and crafts folks use for beadwork. Although we rubbed this on earlier, we still ended up having to retouch it with the aluminum. We're ready to place all our insignia and exterior markings. Some of the decals included are not applicable to either of the aircraft in the kit.
There are certain other mysteries I would like to have explained, and I mean to have them explained.
A few are only specific to F-105G 638320, which is in the Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio. My guess is that they use that jet as a reference to make their decal sheet. The decals are fast acting and ready in about 10 seconds, but the longer pieces are pretty prone to breaking apart. The tail alphanumerics come as a single piece, but you can reduce the amount of carrier film you'll need to hide by cutting them apart should you choose. Of course, every piece has to be individually aligned now. For our loadout, we can choose one of the standard configurations often seen during the F-105G service in Vietnam. We'll go with the setup shown in this aerial image.
I attacked and destroyed 4 SAM sites in one 25-minute mission. 2 SAM sites came up on our way in. We had to attack these boys to turn them off the air to get into the target area. While in the target area, another SAM site came up, threatening to strike force, and of course we attacked and got him. And then on the way back out, another SAM site came up to block our exit out of the target area, which was about 15 or 20 miles north of Hanoi. But he fired 2 SAMs at us, and we managed to acquire him visually and put the rockets on him and machine gun him out of commission. This was the best day I've had, and I don't care to go through another one of those. A little too much for an old man.
Strangely, the decal sheet includes red bands instead of the brown ones for the Shrike missiles. Rather than hand painting them in, we can take some artistic license and use the more interesting red. Onto the exterior fuel tanks. You can't fly your missions without some JP4. Lots of little pieces to add to the underside, or lose if you're not careful. Afraid of hazing the camera glass with the plastic cement, a bit of white glue was used, which is still visible in this clip. We come to a weakness in this model, namely the landing gear. It's somewhat unstable and the attachment points are not great, easily breakable and a bit rickety. We open up our nose bay to the light of day again. Gear down. After attaching the lower part of the nose gear, we have to make a modification and remove the pins on the actuator so that it can fit into the strut. At this point we discover that the circular depression on the forward left fuselage should not be there, so we fill in this hole and paint it over. As we did with the engine and the Vulcan 20mm cannon, we'll paint and construct the radar antenna assembly for installation, and then afterwards hide it inside the nose radome. This model seems borderline CG stable. As a preventative measure to avoid a slightly tail-heavy jet, we need to add some ballast.
Are you suggesting that
It's the only way.
As we've done in the past, we'll add a weight and then seal in with some wax.
There's nothing to be afraid of.
The melting point of wax is much lower than the thicker plastic cone, so there shouldn't be any damage or deformation. At this stage, we'll add a little grime and tarnish to the engine nozzle. Onto the canopies, which need to be masked before we airbrush on some paints. After placing the cockpit canopy glass temporarily to our already painted F-105 Wild Weasel, we can mark off the different areas of the glass frames to ensure proper color matching to the rest of the jet. Unlike the other parts that we've hidden away internally, we'll go ahead and extend and display the air refuel probe. Let's get the flat coat step out of the way for the underside before we continue with the final stages of our project on the upper side. We're getting close to finishing up and towing this Wild Weasel Thunderchief out to the original Max Afterburner airfield of aviation history. The kit means for you to display the cockpits with closed canopies, as there are no optional actuator parts. Scratch building some hinges from sprue number tab pieces, we can modify the canopies to fashion open cockpits. Instead of posing perpendicularly, we'll angle them partially down because it looks niftier. Take care, and we'll see you later.
You're safe now. It's over.
Automatic weapon training airport. Steel, I have no contact for Yamik. This is leading about 35 miles from our current point. Roger, so am I. Okay, Steel lead's going to start a left turn and come over here just a little bit. We're getting a little action right below me. Seeing us clear, we're getting close to the turn point. Roger, I'm turning right now. Right, Steel. Yeah. Going at 5. And we got a bogey low at 2. Who was that for, Eagle? Clem. Get over to the right, something I got 6 going back this way and we run 5.